My name is Jordi Canals at IESE Business School, and on behalf of ECGI and IESE Business School, I want to give you a very warm welcome to this International Corporate Governance Conference on the topic of Can Purpose Deliver Better Corporate Governance? We started the planning of this conference with our colleagues at ECGI about May 2019, so about 18 months ago. At that time, we all were very convinced about the importance of corporate purpose and how it could change the understanding of corporate governance. In the meantime, over the past 18 months, we've seen many changes. In August 2019, we saw the Business Roundtable statement on the statement of purpose for corporations and multi-stakeholder management. A few months later, the World Economic Forum also issued a manifesto in support of multi-stakeholder management. Unfortunately, we had COVID-19 and the importance of considering the environmental impact and the social impact of companies in a much deeper way. And in the past few weeks, we've had a flurry of debates around the debate between shareholders versus stakeholders in the context of the 50th anniversary of Professor Milton Friedman's article on the New York Times and the primacy of shareholders. So lots of things nourishing this debate on corporate purpose. So this conference actually is bringing the attention to this very special topic for corporate governance. Corporate purpose is a theme that has been covered and discussed from different academic disciplines, from organizational economics, corporate finance, strategic management, corporate law, now from regulation and regulatory theory. So different perspectives. And this conference tries to bring together some of those perspectives to better understand purpose and better understand how purpose can be incorporated into corporate governance. The speakers that we have for this conference are outstanding individuals, thinkers, and CEOs, and they will make this conference very unique. But I think that first of all, I would like to thank my ECGI colleagues, in particular, Professor Marco Becht and his colleagues, Elaine McParland and Vanessa Koenig, for their outstanding work. It's always a pleasure to work together in joint projects with ECGI. Thank you very much, Marco. I also want to thank the Social Trends Institute, its chairman, Carlos Caballé, its executive director, Tracy O'Donnell, for their support for this conference. We also have a very important partner in this conference, which is the Strategic Management Society, whose annual conference, the 2020 annual conference, is actually happening these days. And they were kind enough to join us and help us join them so that both conferences can be actually put together for those scholars in strategic management that are following closely developments around corporate purpose. I also want to thank my IESE colleagues, in particular, Felix Sanchez, Sabrina Vos, Miriam Freixa, and Mireia Rius, who have been giving us a fantastic support to make this event. We are today more than 1,700 participants registered, so it's a large conference. And this has been possible because of the effort of ECGI and the IESE team. So to all of you, thank you very much. I would like to thank as well the academic committee of this conference that has been working very hard trying to identify scholars and other speakers who could make a very unique contribution to the conference. So I want to thank Paola Sapienza, Mireia Giné, Marco Becht, Colin Meyer, Joan Enric Ricard, Fabrizio Ferraro, and John Almandoz, who have been working tirelessly over the past few months to make sure that the program actually could make a lot of sense. And I think it makes sense. So I want to thank them. And I want to thank all the speakers, again, the discussants and the chairs of the different sessions for their very important contribution to this conference. I do hope that you will enjoy very much the great experience of listening in 3 days to distinguished thinkers, academics, CEOs, and board directors, reflecting upon the situation of purpose and how purpose can bring change about in the world of corporate governance. So I stop here, and I would like to invite Professor Marco Becht at the ECGI to say a few words. Marco, thank you very much. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Jordi. So good evening, good afternoon, good morning in the Americas. My name is Marco Becht. I'm a professor of finance at Université de Bruxelles and the executive director of ECGI. So let me say a few words about ECGI's long-standing connection with the ECGI, and add a little bit to what Jordi said about our subject today. So first about ECGI. ECGI is a global network comprising about 300 of the world's leading researchers from economics, finance, and law, with an interest in corporate governance and stewardship. ECGI researchers produce more than 100 working papers a year, and the stream of knowledge defines ECGI activities and communications, for example, via ecgi.global. More generally, ECGI serves as a bridge between academic research, practice, and policy making. We have more than 600 members. ECGI is financed by membership contributions and donations, and the two largest donors currently are BlackRock and Investor AB, the holding company of the controlled by the Wallenberg Foundations. Now, on the link with the ECGI, ECGI has a long-standing association with the ECGI. Jordi was a member of the ECGI board for many years, and in 2008, he hosted the ECGI annual meeting at ECGI's brand new, and I have to say, state-of-the-art executive teaching facility in Barcelona. And it was Luigi Zingales, who's going to be again with us today, who spoke about, he asked, board elections, is Italy a model for the rest of us? And his answer was yes. And I'd just like to remind ourselves that today Italy is a model again, but this time in the fight against COVID. Now, moving on to the subject of the conference, the roots of ECGI go back to 1996, and back then corporate governance was practiced by a few investors and studied by some academics, or colloquially speaking, by a bunch of geeks. And as Jordi already said, now corporate governance has moved center stage. We first had codes, then the OECD principles, then the emerging markets and global financial crisis. And today, when we're talking about corporate governance, we're really talking about the role of business in society and actually the future of capitalism. So purpose is central to this debate. And Jordi has already started talking about this, but he's going to provide another overview of what we're going to talk about over the next 3 days in a minute. So let me close this little introduction by saying something that Jordi's already said, which is that it's always a pleasure to work with the ECGI. And part of the reason is the outstanding professionalism of its staff. And he already mentioned Felix Sanchez, and that's absolutely right. And in the case of Felix, not only does he do excellent work, but nomen est omen. And when running a conference with 1,700 registered participants, it takes hard work, but you also need a bit of luck. So with this, I'm very pleased to thank everybody again at IESE and to hand over to its dean, Franz Heukamp.
Thank you very much, Marco, for your kind words. It's a pleasure to work with you and your colleagues at ECGI. Now, I would like to introduce Dean Franz Heukamp to you. Franz has been always a supporter of these conferences over the years, and we're very privileged to having him today among us to say a few words of introduction and welcome to the conference. Franz, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Jordi, and thank you also, Marco, for having me. It's a pleasure to say a few words at the beginning of this conference. It's a little different from other years where you typically do this in some kind of a classroom or some kind of an auditorium. But I think this is a great setting, actually, the way it's come together. And in fact, the first thing I want to say is actually congratulations to the organizers, to Marco, to ECGI, to Jordi, for bringing together this important, impressive number of people to discuss the questions of corporate governance that are on the agenda today in this event, in this online event. And maybe online is an advantage because gathering 1,700 people in one place would actually been probably quite complicated. So first of all, congratulations for organizing this conference and for bringing together so many people. And the second thing is a specific thank you also to all involved. Of course, to Marco Becht, the executive director who spoke before of the European Corporate Governance Institute, for the different institutions that sponsor this event, that are close to IESE, the Social Trends Institute, with the chairman Carlos Caballé, but also I think this happy coincidence that the Strategic Management Society has been willing and able to endorse this conference also as part of its annual conference 2020. And of course, also to the Center for Corporate Governance and specifically the IESE Foundation Chair that Jordi Canals holds. So thank you for doing this, and congratulations for bringing together so many people in one place under this topic. The pandemic, of course, has laid bare many challenges that we have in society, how we work, how we live, what corporate and individual success looks like, maybe also who is responsible for what really in society. And all of this, of course, also links back to the cooperation, which in the end is a very important engine for our lives and where most of our life, and for many people, actually takes place. I think this has been an acceleration of themes that were already on the corporate governance agenda before. Maybe in some cases also it's been a test for some of the insights and lessons that have been learned so far on what they do, how they do really once they receive specific stress that is currently present in many parts of society. And the theme of purpose, that's the central theme of the conference this year, whether it can be truly helpful always, and if so, how and when, of course, is extremely timely. And I agree with Marco that in the end, this connects to the future of capitalism as a whole and is therefore an important topic to be discussed these days in this conference. I also want to draw the attention to the fact that there is actually an interesting mixture of academics and practitioners present in this conference. I think that makes it particularly interesting and insightful and also unique. And of course, I haven't said much about the school, but yes, we're very glad to host this conference. And I think the conference and the prior events, also last year's conference, reflects the importance we give to corporate governance, both in research and in teaching. And the Center of Corporate Governance and the chairs that are associated with this, Jordi's chair, the IESE Foundation chair, but also the Santander chair of governance, and the different other research and teaching initiatives are really a testimony to this. So I wish all a productive and very fruitful conference. I hope the technology will be as good as our physical facilities that Marco referred to before. And I hope that it will go well for all participants during these 3 days. So let me hand back to Jordi for the proper introduction of this day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Franz, for your kind words and introduction. And I would like to share on behalf of Marco, the whole academic committee of the conference, a brief overview of what we're going to do over the next 3 days so that you can actually have a comprehensive perspective on the topics and the different contents of the 6 sessions of this conference. We're going to start in a few minutes with the first session led by Professors Colin Meyer and Luigi Singales. Colin will present a paper on the importance of corporate purpose statements and why they are something that could help companies when taken seriously to promote better corporate governance. The session is going to be chaired by Professor Mireia Giné. In the second half of this afternoon's conference, we'll have a specific perspective on corporate purpose and actually on some of the externalities of companies generating their activities. Professor Patrick Bolton from Columbia University will bring together a number of models to take into account one of those externalities, which is the impact of companies on carbon emissions and how new models of financial valuation can take this externality into account, and eventually how governance can benefit and improve from those better models. Patrick's paper will be discussed by Sophie Lelias, a well-known investor and president and founder of Leaders for Change. And we're very happy to have here a practitioner discussing a leading academics paper. This session will be chaired by Professor Xavier Vives. Tomorrow afternoon, we're going to start at 4 p.m. Eastern Time with a very interesting session with a paper by a professor, MIT professor Ben Holmstrom, Nobel laureate of economics in 2016, and one of the leading thinkers of the mother theory of the firm. And he will help us how purpose can be somehow incorporated or taken into account in models of the contemporary view of the firm. We'll not have a formal discussion here, but we'll have Paul Polman. You know Paul very well. He was the Chief Executive Officer of Unilever, one of the leaders who have actually bring change about in large companies, introducing purpose, introducing the notion of multi-stakeholder management. And it will be very interesting to have a leading academic with a leading CEO discuss about corporate purpose. This session will be chaired by Professor Joan Ricard, and will be also joined by Henry Trix, who is the Schumpeter writer at The Economist, who will moderate the discussion between Ben and Paul. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll have the session number 4, which is going to delve into a specific dimension of purpose, which is the sense of identification and engagement on the side of employees, depending upon the type of commitment to purpose and also the type of ownership that a specific company may have. Professor Claudine Gartenberg from Wharton will present a very interesting paper on this topic. It will be discussed by Caroline Flammer from Boston University, and Elu von Taden from University of Mannheim will chair the discussion. I think this is also a very important dimension, because so often when we speak about purpose, we speak about, for instance, one of the externalities of companies, which is the impact on the environment and climate change. But we need to focus a lot also on the internal dimensions of companies and how employees feel somehow engaged or disengaged from certain notions of purpose. We move to Friday, and Friday we'll have the first session, session number 5. We'll have Professor Rebecca Henderson from Harvard Business School. She's been very active in, as you know, a leading scholar in organizational economics, and very active on trying to understand also the impact of purpose on employees' motivation and engagement, and also how to take into account the impact of companies on climate change and also social inequality. She will present a very interesting paper that will be discussed by Professor Jordi, who is currently the chairman of CaixaBank, and Professor Jill Fish from University of Pennsylvania Law School will chair this very interesting debate. And we'll finish on Friday afternoon with a panel of board directors, CEOs, and chairmen of companies, trying to understand how purpose is somehow stepping into boardroom discussions, and how this may help the way boards of directors frame strategic discussions and eventually shape strategic decisions. So you can see that there is a diversity of approaches to corporate purpose, different topics, also different disciplines: organizational economics, corporate finance, strategic management, leadership. So I hope that all those sessions will help us understand a bit better this complex theme, this complex dimension, but at the same time with the conviction that if we make some additional steps in the right direction along purpose, probably we're going to improve the quality of governance. We'll have more respected companies, and companies will be the type of institutions in society that have this impact, not just in terms of economic value creation, but also in terms of social value creation. Thank you very much for attending the conference. Again, thank you very much to all speakers for their special and unique contribution. Without them, the conference would not exist. And now it's time to go to session number 1, and I'm very pleased to pass the screen on to Professor Mireia Giner, who will chair session number 1 in this conference. Thank you.